I think
Jamie, hi, Jamie.
Hey, how you doing, Jimmy?
This is fun.
Joe,
Where are you
Zach,
at? Are you in your office or what, Chan?
no, I'm just in my kitchen. But hey, Joe. So Zak Kindrachuk, I haven't seen Zach since he was a little kid, and I think it was in Hershey at an alumni game.
Yes.
Maybe
Oh, geez, really?
yes, 25
Has it been
years
that
ago.
long, really?
I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'm super big now. I'm like 6'4", 200 pounds. Very intimidating.
You'll be playing hockey then, Zach.
I should have been playing hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Worry about when you're going to Palm Springs or Palm Springs.
Yeah, Palm Springs, Palm Desert, same. Kind of in the same area. I know Palm Springs is actually going to have a minor league hockey team there soon.
Are they?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Peter Luco's setting it up.
Peter Luco.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
It wasn't you.
Joe missed that.
All right.
Peter Luke. Hey, Joe, did you know Zach just said Peter Luco is going to be setting up a minor hockey league franchise in Palm Springs?
I didn't. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Which farm team would? Farm team? Any farm team? Would it be?
Yeah, it'll be a farm team. I can't remember which franchise. I want to say the Islanders, but that doesn't sound right either.
Well, it could, it does because he's working for the Islanders, setting that new building up.
You're right. Then that's probably what it is. Yeah.
So it probably is the Islanders. It probably is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2022. It's gonna be done sometime next year.
How many people live in the Palm Springs or Palm?
Depends what time of year. I mean, it's a pretty crowded area, but everyone bolts in the summer because it gets really hot.
Yeah.
But it's a really affluent area, and they're looking for things to do. I think the arena is going to seat like 13,000, 14,000. It's going to be really big. I think they'll do all right out there.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know what? Concerts and everything else.
You know what? You got a lot of other stuff. You've got a lot of Canadians have migrated there every
so many Canadians. Yeah. So many. Yeah, you'll see a ton of Saskatchewan license plates out there. It's weird.
Do you?
Totally.
Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Like I don't know if you know this. My parents live there half the year.
Yep.
And so there's someone on Calgary on their block, someone from Edmonton, someone from like Moose Jaw. Their whole street is just almost entirely Canadians.
Yeah.
So is that all those rich wheat farmers from the prairies? Is that it?
Yeah, they traded in, their wheat stocks or whatever you guys do.
Joe played in Estevan, Saskatchewan. Man, Joe, think about that, Joe. Who would have thunk it, huh?
Very true.
Actually, it's probably oil money for the most part. Yeah. Oil money that everybody, sold out.
All right,
ready to go?
We're ready to go.
All right, let's do it. Okay. I'm trying to think of what episode number this is. 13. Welcome to My Dad Used to Play Hockey, episode number 13. I'm your host, Zak Kindrachuk, son of NHL great Oris Kindrachuk. And I am, for the first time, having two people on that are brothers. And because, brothers in the NHL are hard to find, especially brothers that still talk to each other. Both Flyers greats. Welcome, Jim Watson and Joe Watson. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Oh, good.
So you know what? When I got word of this, Zach, I was looking forward to it too.
Good.
You know what? It's always a pleasure to be on with Big Joe, and then the son of one of our teammates.
Yeah.
So going back to you when you were just a young little kid, and here you are, Zach, doing some good stuff, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep.
I found out that here's something that's really spooky about you too. And you probably know this, but I don't know how many of your fans know this. You both retired with the exact same amount of goals. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
Did they count our practice goals?
Zach, they did not. No.
No, they did. No.
Regulation goals. Joe Watson retired with 38 goals. Jim Watson retired with 38 goals. That's weird.
Well, you know what? We didn't score many. Zach, we didn't score many, but they were always big ones.
Yeah. That's what I've been told. But you weren't put on the ice to score goals.
Well, there you are. Yeah, but
our main purpose in being a defenseman is to prevent them, and I think we did a pretty good job of preventing them because we're always usually a good plus and minus. Our plus and minus record was was I think pretty substantial. And I know when we at the end of the year we always got bonuses for the plus and minuses, and when we got a minus against them, we were not very happy. So I think we were pretty successful as far as the plus and minus goes.
I can tell
You
you
know
what
what,
both your
though?
plus minuses are.
Pardon me?
I don't
Both
know
your
what
plus minuses are higher than Mario Lemieux's. So good for you.
oh
That means
my
that
God,
means
Zach.
you're better players than Mario Lemieux.
Jesus. Boy, you did a lot of research, Zach. Holy
I did. I looked
Hey,
you guys
Zach,
up.
Zach, you have research.
Ever.
Well, I got to tell you something right now. Just, hey, Zach and Joe, just and to the fans out there, just as we're speaking about this, got me thinking about scoring goals. I didn't score many, but how exciting was it to score a goal in the National Hockey League, Joe? Huh? Joe.
Well, yeah,
And Joe got the big goal against the Russians, Zach. Have you thought about that? Big Joe.
I
with the-
have. I looked it up.
he broke their backs, the Russians. That was it. They were done after that.
A
They
shorthanded
haven't
goal.
recovered yet, Zach. They still haven't recovered. That's 40 years ago, for Christ's sake.
I give you guys credit for breaking up the USSR. Like, it didn't happen that year. You know, it took a few years later for Reagan to reach out to Gorbachev. But I feel like the seedlings for breaking up that dictatorship started with the Flyers' victory over the Russians. And I feel like that's my single favorite game the Flyers ever played. And I'd love to hear both of your memories of it.
Okay.
Starting with you, Jim.
Okay, so I just want to go. Right away. I want to go to a Gene Hart story.
Always good.
Okay, the great announcer, the Gene Hart for the Flyers, and he told a joke about after the Russian game that Joe Watson had scored the big goal. And Joe, maybe you want to touch on the joke. Do you want to tell the joke, or do you want me to tell it?
Well, it was Freddie Sherrill that said, when I scored that goal, he said, Joey, you're going to set Russian program back 25 years. And you know what? They still haven't recovered, for Christ's sake. We were over there playing Zach 3 years ago. And Jimmy's son Chase came with us, and I was interviewed pretty substantially because I was the only player that played in that game that played in '76 that played in Russia 3 years ago. And we went to these various towns: Kazakhstan, Kazan, St. Petersburg, and Moscow, and Red Square. And especially in Red Square, I was interviewed about 4 or 5 times by the Russian TV stations, and most of the people were young people. And I said to them, I said, listen, you weren't even around when we beat the Russian hockey team. Oh, no, Mr. Watson, it's ingrained in our society. What the Russian bullies did to our Soviet Red Army team. I said, oh, really? I said, okay. Oh, that's not a bad Russian accent, is it?
Joe, you do a pretty good job on that, Joe.
That was good.
But so Joe, there was the other story, Zach, where Gene Hart, our famous announcer, was over in Russia on vacation.
Oh, Jesus.
And he was up in there. They were checking out the salt mines, and he came across these the tour. They were doing a tour, and they came across these 4 guys in ball and chains, and they were breaking up stones. And Gene Hart asked the translator who was giving them the tour, he said, what happened to those 4 guys? Why are they doing that? And he said they were the 4 hockey players who were on the ice when Joe Watson scored that shorthanded goal.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, my God. Yeah, I forgot about that, Chad. You're right. Jesus.
Oh my God, that was a funny story. Oh, I love that story. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Wait, take me to the one thing that I Lou Nolan has some great stories about that day. Apparently, Lou, you guys know Lou, obviously. He took the entire Russian team to Pat Sergino's, one of the two, and taught him how to order cheesesteaks, which is hysterical. And then also took him to Macy's, where they bought a bunch of blue jeans, which were later stolen from them. What was your reaction, though? This is what I want to know about. When you were first told that, okay, you're going to have to play the Russian, the Red Army team. Were there any nerves involved with it? Because, you're not just representing the Flyers, you're representing the American way of life. You're Rocky Balboa at this point.
Yeah. Joe?
Well, I remember when the announcement came and they announced the teams that were going to play against the Russians, and one being us, obviously. And we had the last game, which was really good for us because we could really find out how well they were doing against the other teams, the opposing teams. And right, they were beating everybody. The only team they didn't beat was Buffalo. But the Wings, the red Soviet Wings played the Buffalo, and they beat them, I think, 12-6 or something, or 8 to whatever the score was. But the other team that we played, the Soviet Red Army, they beat Boston, they beat the Rangers, they tied Montreal, and then they had to play the Flyers.
Joe, they blew out the Bruins and the Rangers. They blew them out, and then they tied the Canadians in a great game.
But I think that we realized we had to uphold the prestige of hockey in North America. And I remember Clarence Campbell come in the dressing room prior to the game, and Lloyd Gilmore came in, who was a referee, a guy from British Columbia, and Alan Eagleson, and said we had to uphold the prestige of hockey in North America. We more or less said in a few words, "Get the hell out of here, Clarence. You didn't even want to come on the ice to present us a Stanley Cup. We won the damn thing. So get the hell out of here." So Clarence,
I love this because there's just two consistent things about the Flyers I've interviewed so far. Ed Snyder is referred to as Mr. Snyder, and you all hate Clarence Campbell so much.
Well, Clarence didn't want to come in the ice sack and give us a cup, for Christ's sake.
I know.
Terrible.
Keep this show clean, Joe. Okay.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
it is clean. It's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, it's just harsh reality. That's all it is.
True.
But and then after the game, Zach, we win the game.
Yeah.
I mean, we walked off the ice. That incident's there. But then after the game, I come out of the dressing room, and I had a little Flyer hat on. Maybe a $2 hat. And this Russian came out of the dressing room. We had a Russian Cossack hat. So he come over and approached me. He goes like this: "Hot, hot, 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 hot." I said, "Hat? Yeah, my hat." Yeah, hot. I says, "Okay, I give you my hat, you give me your hat." So I gave him a $2.50 hat, and I still have the Russian Cossack hat today, for Christ's sake. It's probably worth $200.
Wow.
I still have the damn thing.
But tell me about the conversations you all were having while the team was off the ice, where Ed Van Amp delivers probably the least brutal hit of his career. Let's be honest.
That is true. You are right. That is true.
Okay. So when we're in the locker room waiting to see what's going to go on, right? I remember Bobby Clark saying just very distinctly, he said, "Hey guys, they're going to come back. This is a ploy. They don't like what's going on. They're going to try to get something out of us somehow, or get some more money out of the league, whatever." But he says, "Don't worry, they're coming back." And he had dealt with them in the 72 Canada Cup Series when they went over. They played 4 games in Canada, and then they played 4 games in Russia. And
Right.
Bobby was part of that in 72. So he was familiar with them and their tactics and what have you. So he said, and so we just got prepared. We just kept our focus. That was a big thing, just keeping our focus strong. And we came out and just attacked after that and scored, I think, in a minute, we scored the first goal and scored again right after that. So up 2-0 after the first. But no, we were not nervous or concerned about that. But going back, you had asked earlier about how we felt about this and were there nerves involved, Zach? And I can remember distinctly, I mean, I barely slept for 2 days before the game.
Wow.
And I was nervous. And Joe, you touched on earlier, we were the reigning Stanley Cup champions at that time. And they were beating up everybody. I mean, seriously, they had, and the only team that had, Buffalo did beat the Wings, but that was a second team.
Yeah.
The Red Army team, took everybody out, but the Canadians did tie them in a great game. So
you're missing Bernie. You don't have Bernie for the
We don't have Bernie. Steph played on that game, I believe. But we felt the pressure, certainly, because the whole league, our hockey, North America, the world's best league we're playing in, if we lose that game, think about it. What does that say about our stature of our game? So we had all this on us. And we were going on, I mean, just fired up, though, just fired right up.
Yeah.
But another good story is on Saturday, the day before the game, we have practice at the Spectrum. And the Russians are going to practice, I believe, after us. So they're up in the stands watching us practice. And Joe, I don't know if you remember, we couldn't do anything well in the practice. It was terrible. Freddie sure used to give us these drills where we would take one puck up, 3 guys would take one puck up, pass it back and forth. just go up and down, back and forth. And then we go 2 pucks and do it. And then sometimes 3 pucks. And the pucks were going all over the damn place. We couldn't complete a pass. And the Russians are up there watching thinking, holy shit, these guys are brutal. So, but that was that, right? But then after we go and have a lunch, we have the luncheon at the Ovations at the Spectrum.
Oh,
and
Ovations.
they've got their table sitting there, and we're sitting right beside them. And Schultze told me, he said, I got in position, Jim, where I could stare at their table. And I just stared them down for the whole time we're in the restaurant.
Well, if you remember the interviews, they started introducing the players. So they introduced the Russians, and there was quite a few press there, and nothing was really said. And then they started the players, the Flyers, and when they come to number 8, Dave Schultz, oh my God, all of a sudden that caught their attention.
Mhm.
And they started mumbling amongst themselves and looking around to see where he was and everything else. And then we kind of knew that I think they were very apprehensive of even playing the game because they knew it was going to be late. But I'll never forget Freddie Sherrill coming in devising a system against the Russians. He says, what we're going to do, we're going to have our defense stand up at center ice, between center ice and the blue line. Our forwards are going to come in back. And if we can take them out and make them lose the puck, and then our forwards will be going at their defensemen, we'll catch them off, shorthanded and off stride. And I think that kind of worked to our advantage because Freddie devised a system, and Freddie was always ahead of his time. Zach.
Yeah, interesting that you did definitely had a strategy against them, because when you watch the game, it was just like, we're just going to pummel them. They're not used to this. Yeah. They're not used to the physicality that the bullies brought to the game.
And the other thing, guys, was that Freddie also said we're not gonna chase them. So we just kind of stood still. They were coming up. They like to pass the puck and trap you that way and get out on odd man situations from that. And Freddie says, no, we're not going to chase them. We're just going to stand still. Guys will move up and get in position, but we're not going to chase them. So they made about 4 or 5 passes. So I got the opening face-off. They made about 4 or 5 passes and we didn't move. Right. and they didn't know what the heck to do at that point, So, and that's the way we kind of handled it. And it went really good from there on in. It was like 49, I think, to 13, the shots on goal. Something like it was ungodly.
Yeah,
that's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah, 49-13.
Yeah, but Joe had the big shot. And it made it 3-0. That kind of did them in, Joe.
It broke their back. They still have, like I said, Jimmy said they haven't recovered yet for Christ.
No, they haven't recovered. But Zach, you were touching on the Russians, and it was sad because they had nothing. They had nothing, and all they wanted to do was get blue jeans. When they came over here, they wanted to go to the Cherry Hill Mall and go shopping for blue jeans. And the trainers told us that they didn't even shower. They just matted their hair down, and they took everything. There was any soap, the soap, they just threw it in their bags, the towels, anything they could get their hands on, they took. Because they didn't have anything over there at the time.
Lou Nolan told me that some of the team doctors that had traveled with him were actually working for the KGB. This is Lou's story, and ended up just ransacking the locker room before they even finished the third period.
We confused the KGB big time, man.
Yeah,
but that was the other thing, guys. So hey, Zach, the KGB Joe. So when we come up for the game, you got all these banners. The Cold War was still on.
Yes.
And you come out and hanging in the Spectrum, all these banners, and there were political banners, talking about freedom and what have you. And this was also on our plate to win. It was capitalism against socialism.
Yeah.
Okay, or communism. And that was it. So another reason for us to be fired up, and by God, were we fired up. Joe didn't sleep much, man.
Oh, I didn't. You know what? I don't think it really bothered me that much. I just knew we were going to win the damn game because we were like you said, we were wound up. And I remember after the game we went out and celebrated, but 2 days later we had to go to Kansas City, for Christ's sake. And I remember Clark and I went to the store to look for something, to buy something, and we had people from Kansas City saying congratulations on beating the Russians. I said, for Christ's sake, Kansas City, Christ, they had 8,000 people come to the game. How in the hell would they recognize us? It goes to show you a lot of people watch the game.
Yes.
There's over 300 million people, Zach, all over the world watch the game. 150 million people in Russia watched it alone.
Oh, absolutely.
And my first wife's parents in Germany lived in Stuttgart, Germany. They watched the game at 9 o'clock at night, and they never watched a game in their life, for Christ's sake. I remember we got letters from New Zealand, Australia, Japan, congratulating us on beating the Russians, and I kind of felt bad. I felt sorry for them initially, but that was their way of life compared to our way of life, and it's so different.
Yeah.
When we were over there 3 years ago, it hasn't changed much. I don't think, it really hasn't.
Well, Putin's kind of brought back, but he's definitely brought back a USSR type vibe to the whole nation.
Hey, listen, from what I understand about Putin, I just heard the other day he scored 8 goals in a friggin' one game. And the friggin' the goalie went and hid behind the net when he was shooting.
There's highlights. I watched highlights of that today, and let's just say they gave him plenty of space.
Plenty of space. Big Putin, Joe. There you go.
I thought when we were in Russia, I thought he was going to play the game. The Kremlin, I don't know if you've ever been to Russia, but the Kremlin is right next to the Red Square, where we were playing there. And I think he watched our game against them. But I thought he was going to play, but he didn't play.
Yeah. You know what? The Russians, hey, great people. They're great people. It's a form of government they have,
Sure.
But the people are wonderful.
Well, and that's the sense that I got too. With you didn't have anything personal against any of the actual people you were playing against during that game. It was just it was the uniform and the
it was the game. It was the game, Zach. Our game against their game. But as far as the players themselves, I'm sure they're good people, and they are good people.
And the Russians have significantly influenced the NHL for the last 15 years. Starting kind of with Makarov and going on from there. There's integral as almost as any nation at this point.
They've been great for our game. And Joe, you mentioned earlier about Freddie Shiro. Freddie would go over to Russia. He was the first coach to go over there and do seminars with the great Anatoly Tarasov.
Mm-hmm.
And Freddie brought a lot of the stuff back to the Flyers and to the NHL. So and the training that they would do. We didn't do any of that, and we've learned so much, and it's made our game so much better. What we've learned from them.
Well, let's talk about Fred Shiro and your relationship with him. And obviously, I haven't talked to any player at this point that doesn't have this incredibly impactful Fred Shiro moment. But what I still think is really interesting is that he was so Buddha-esque in terms of the sort of advice he would give, the peace he would try to bring to a game, but then you guys were just brutal. You're as physical a team as the NHL has ever seen, and it's such an interesting relationship that the Flyers you guys have with Fred Shiro, and then the relationship you had with the NHL at the same time, where he was saying, I bring it up almost once an episode. Win today, we walk together forever is as gorgeous of a sentence I feel like has ever been constructed. But it's also also beat up everybody who doesn't let you walk together forever. I find Fred Shiro as fascinating a character as the NHL has ever produced.
Well, you know what, Zach, if I may say, he was ahead of his time. He would say something to us, and us hockey players, being as smart as we are, we'd figure out what he meant by it a month later. That's how smart we were. But Freddie was to a T in a lot of things he said. And I'll never forget when we played Boston in the final for the Stanley Cup. And Boston had beaten Chicago, I think, 4 or 5 games. And our series against the Rangers was 7 games. And Boston honestly figured they were going to play the Rangers, so they were preparing for the Rangers, and then we ended up winning. And so we go to Boston on a Monday afternoon the next day after our win against the Rangers, and there's a big headline in the paper saying, "This is anticlimactic. We just beat a better team to get to the finals, and we're going to play for the finals." And I said, "Freddie, what the hell?" I looked at it, and Freddie sure made that statement. I said, "Freddie, how the hell can you say something like that?" He says, "Joe, we're not going to show any respect for Boston." And he says, "This is what we're going to do, and we're going to shoot the puck in Orr's corner. Every time we get it, we're going to make him go back and get it. And every time he gets the puck, we're going to get in his way and make him exert some energy. And he might be he might be very forceful the first 3 or 4 games, but he'll be worn out because he was playing 35 to 40 minutes a game.
Yeah,
And lo and behold, that's what happened. He had run out of gas.
totally.
And I remember talking to him after the game. There was a room in between the 2 dressing rooms in the Spectrum, and I got him to come in there, and we talked for a few minutes. He says, "You guys wore me right out." He said, "That was the plan, to go after you and make you exert a lot of energy because the buildings are hot and there wasn't a lot of air conditioning. Christ, in Boston, the Boston dressing room, they had the heat on, and Boston, their own dressing room, they had the air conditioner on. So it goes to show you, all's fair in love and war. They were irritating us, and right, we're losing 7, 8, 10 pounds a game sometimes.
Yeah, I bet.
Great, and then another 3 or 4 pounds after that. Try to shower and get the hell out of there. It was
Yeah,
kinda
you know what?
crazy.
Hey, Joe, just to echo that. So every team that played Boston, the philosophy of the opposing coach was keep the puck away from Orr. Don't let him get the puck.
Yeah.
You know, and of course that kept him fresh, like you said, Joe. And the puck the other defenseman would get it and give it to Orr right away, and he would just take off with it. You know, that type of deal. So Freddie said, put it in his corner, and every chance you get in front of him, just bump him a little bit, make him go around you, aggravate him a little bit. And over the 6 games, he was just about wiped right out at the end.
You'd have to be.
But a totally different philosophy from any coach that ever coached against
True.
Orr that had never been done before. And it is fantastic coaching by Freddie. The genius of that. Instead of going away, we're going to go right towards them and attack their best player and wear them down. So
Yeah.
think about that stroke of genius, which it was. So
I remember Freddie saying, "Boys, this is the way we're going to beat them. Not the way we're going to play them. This is the way we're going to beat them." And Freddie said, I'll never forget when he said that, I said, "Holy shit, he believes we can win this thing." And of course, we had to believe too, but Freddie was right. This is the way we're going to beat them. He never said this is the way we're going to play them. We're going to beat them this way. And Freddie was absolutely right. Absolutely right.
When your first experience with Fred Shiro, was he as confident in you as a team right from the beginning? Was he always believed he had put together something special, or was that something that started to come along like 20, 30 games into that special 73, 74
You know
season?
what? I believe he did. I believe he felt he had a really good team. Listen, we had the great Bobby Clark, and he knew he had a tremendous leader in Bobby. Listen, he also did something else. Joe, you were there. I wasn't here yet, and neither was your father, Zach Horst. He took the captaincy from Eddie and gave it to Bobby, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Yes.
And think about that. But Eddie Van Imp handled that really well, and he understood, and he recognized that Bobby was the best player. And Freddie
I just spoke to Clarkie about that moment where
and Freddie said, listen, the best player should be our captain.
Exactly.
And that's what he did there. Another stroke of friggin' genius. But he knew he had great leadership, and he loved our room. He guys like Joe, there were all kinds of good leaders on the team. Eddie was a leader. I mean, you go right down the line, Dorney, all these guys, Ross, Moose DuPont, great leaders. So Freddie, and you know what? He gave me confidence just being around Freddie. He was so friggin' calm. And just, he would talk to you in a plain way. He never raised his voice. I got all shook up and stuff. He just talked to you and kept, for me, it helped calm me down, I think. So that's the way he was. And I have nothing but great memories and just fond memories.
it doesn't seem like anybody who played for him has anything but
just
amazing memories.
I'm so grateful for everything he did for our team and for me in particular. Just a wonderful man.
I never forget this, that I went to visit him, the Cooper Medical Center over in Jersey, in Camden there, the day before he passed on. And I'm there and we're talking, and his whole body was all disheveled. It was so sad to watch him. But anyway, he had a little piece of paper in his hand and a pencil. And he tried to diagram a play for me and trying to show me this play he wanted people to use or whatever. And I'll never forget that, him diagramming this little play on a piece of paper in his hand. And I said, oh my God. And the next day he was gone. He was gone.
Yeah.
But never stopped thinking about strategy. Never thought. Yeah.
He would fix his glasses, put them up on his nose, get it organized. When he would walk out of the room, and that would be it. Boy, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
He'd give us a few words, lay it out to us. He always loved to hand out pieces of paper with great sayings on them,
Yeah.
you know. And one of the things he did was he always used this John Wooden, who was the famous basketball coach back in the 60s out of UCLA, won more basketball games, I believe, than anybody. And he's
the logo of the NBA. Yeah.
And he had a quote of John Wooden, and he gave that to us, Joe. I don't remember this. He said, here's what John Wooden said. He said, irregardless of whether you win or lose, as long as you can say you gave it all you had, you are a winner. Okay? And that took a lot of things off my plate, really relaxed me again. Saying, listen, as long as I work my friggin' tail off, I'm a winner.
Yeah.
And what a way to approach the game. So you didn't beat yourself up too much if you made a mistake. And he took that and he carried that over to our whole entire team.
I knew Freddie. When I broke in the Central Professional League with Minnesota in 1963, and Freddie was a coach of the St. Paul Rangers. They were a farm team of the New York Rangers. And I got to know Freddie, and Marcel Pelche was a scout, was a goaltender then for them, and then Marcel became the scout for the Flyers. But I got to meet Freddie then in 1963 and 64 and 5 and so on and so forth. And then the Flyers signed him up, and rest is history.
Was he like that then? Was he the same guy?
Yeah, I never really I got to meet him, but he never coached me.
Yeah.
He was always coaching against me. But I just talked to some of the players in the St. Paul Rangers. There was Bob Plager, and there was Bill. Oh, I forget the name of the guys, but anyway, they were there, and they used to always tell me, Freddie, it'd always keep you on your toes. But
so, Joe, here's a question for you. How did Keith Allen go get him? What happened? What's the story on Keith Allen hiring Freddie?
Marcel Pelche. Marcel Pelche told him to go after Freddie Shero.
Did he?
And in the Rangers, he was with the Rangers, that Ranger organization. And Marcel Pelche said that Freddie could do the job.
Wow.
And that's how the Flyers went out and got Freddie. I don't know if Marcel was the only guy. There might have been another guy too, but Marcel Pelche had something to do with the Flyers signing Freddie Shero.
Keith Allen he always had a flair for the dramatic. The stories that I've heard, it's like Keith Allen just shows up out of nowhere, like Batman. He's like, you want to come play for the team? And no one believes it's Keith Allen. And then before you know it, it actually is, and you're on the Flyers.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? God bless Keith Allen too.
Yeah.
And all his support staff. I didn't know Marcel Pelche had advised him to do that, Joe. That's very interesting.
He was part of it. Yeah, he was. Yeah, part of it.
Yeah. But Keith Allen was brilliant also. I mean, and one of the things, I want to mention this, is that Fred Shero coached Andre Dupont down in the minor league, didn't he, Joe?
At Omaha.
Yeah. Was it Omaha?
Yeah.
And when Freddie came to Philadelphia, shortly thereafter, right, Joe? Him and Keith, they talked, and they made the trade for Moose Dupont out of St. Louis for Brent Hughes.
And Pierre
Plant. Yeah. And Moose was a very important part of our team, man. He was huge for us.
So my understanding, and this is probably 3 or 4 of your ex-teammates, is that Schultz fought the most, but Dupont was the best fighter.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No,
no, I don't know. I don't agree with that either. I don't agree with that. Schultz fought the most, and he was the toughest. And he was a better fighter also. But you know what? Hey, Zach, listen. And for you fans out there, it was great to hear Moose and Schultz argue in the locker room who beat who in the fights in the minors.
Oh God.
Moose used to say, oh, I kicked his rear end, man. I beat that. Moose, you could have a conversation with Moose and you'd say, well, how good is this guy? They just called this guy up, so-and-so up from the minors. And Moose would never tell you how good he was. He would just tell you, well, I kicked his ass in a fight.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We had so many laughs, Zach. Zach, we were a loose group. We had so many laughs. We had so many funny guys, and so Freddie would keep it loose too. Freddie would crack a joke, and
it sounds like it. He was a funny guy, and then that everybody had both have reverence for Keith Allen, that he was a funny guy. You know, I spoke to Dave Poulin a couple days ago, and he had some great funny Keith Allen stories. And Clarky even, you know, had me laughing. And and then there's a name I'm sure you're both familiar with that may not be that familiar to a lot of Flyers fans, but it's certainly familiar to you, named Joe Cadillac. So the first episode of this was with Schulte. And what I found most fascinating is that, you know, at some point, you guys didn't have to, but my dad was forced to move on. And so was Schulte to another team. And then they fought each other twice. And guess who found the exact moment in terms of which period, what time, and the exact game? Joe Cadillac. So now I have these sources, because when I asked Schulte won. When I asked my dad won. So now I can go back and see these fights and see who actually won.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of stories about Schulte too. I never forget there was a little guy that played for the Detroit Red Wings, Dennis Polonich, and he was from the Canadian prairies, and so Schulte's from Saskatchewan, Clarky's from Manitoba, you know, and but he would aggravate. And he used to like to aggravate Clarky, and Schulte went after him, and it was right in the spectrum. But Dennis Polonich was only like 5'8", maybe. So Schulte ran over to him on the ice, and because Dave was 6'2" and Polonich was 5'8", Dave dropped to his knees and said, "Come on, let's fight." So there's Schulte on his freaking knees in the spectrum. And he said, "Come on, Polonich, let's go." Oh my God, it was the funniest thing.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I guess it was 2011, 2012. My brother and I were watching the Super Bowl together, and it was the Harbaugh Bowl, you know, brother versus brother. Jim was coaching the 49ers, and John was coaching the Ravens. Yep. And I remember, you know, obviously John prevailed. The Ravens won the Super Bowl that year. But then they met at midfield, gave the briefest of handshakes to each other, and then moved on. And my brother and I were like, I don't care if you beat me or if I beat you. That would be a moment. Like, that would be a big hug. Congratulations and everything. Does it just become like, okay, you become another teammate when you're playing as brothers, or was it always just 10% more special? Like, I get to share this moment with, you know, my older bro, my younger bro.
Well, Joe, I'll tell you what, Joe, you were a big plus to me. I mean, when I came to Philly as a rookie, and I came the same year your dad did, Zach. You know, Orst and I came to the Flyers the same year, but having Joe there for me as having a brother, I mean, was wonderful. And Joe gave me all kinds of little tidbits of advice and stuff like that, and just being there, and the love that I got from Joe gave me support, and it really helped me through my career. Yeah. So, Joe, Zach, you were a big plus. You were a big help, Joe.
Zach, let me tell you a story. When Flyers drafted my brother Jim, I didn't know that I went to a wedding in Trail, British Columbia, and I was living in Kamloops at the time because my wife was taking nurses training, and so I went to this wedding, and I get home Sunday night, and Keith Allen's trying to get a hold of me. He wants me to come to Philadelphia because they just drafted Jimmy. They're going to bring him and Tommy Bladen and Billy Barber for a conference. So Keith said, "We want you to come." I said, "Oh, I can't make it. I can't make it." And of course, Jimmy went down to the press conference and so on and so forth. I told Keith, "I'm going to represent him. I'll be his agent." And Keith said, "What?" "Yeah, I'm his agent. I'm going to handle his agent. I'm going to be his agent." And Keith said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." So we negotiate a contract with Jimmy. Well, lo and behold, I was making about 32 or 33,000 at the time. And Jimmy came in the first year. I got him more money than I was making, for Christ's sake. It was crazy. But then my contract was up the next year, and then I kind of caught up with him. But initially, he was making more money than I was for.
Even
know, talk
even with the 10% cut, were you getting a 10%
No,
cut?
Joe didn't even take anything. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
I'm going to do it because you're my brother. I'm going to
Yeah.
represent you. But it was good, Joe. It was good. You know what? The best thing about it, Zach, was I was the only single guy on the team at the time. And Joe and
Smart.
Marianne, his wife, they would always invite me over for dinner. And that was just the best. I always got a great meal when I would go over there, especially at the holidays and whatnot. So Thanksgiving and Christmas, go over there and just feast up. And, so I really appreciated that also. But,
Yeah.
we had a lot of good
I
times
remember
together.
Zach. I remember Zach when I'd come home from hockey, the hockey season, and Jimmy was only 10 years old, and we'd go biking to a place called Morristown and watch the Indians gaff these fish and catch all these fish. And there was a guy named Johnny Watson who was a cousin of ours, and we'd bike there 20 miles there and 20 miles back and everything else. And I told Jimmy, this is what you have to do if you want to be a professional athlete. You got to keep yourself in good shape and do a lot of running exercise and working out and lifting weights and free weight, but don't lift for bulk, lift for strength and so on and so forth. And of course, Jimmy did that. And the one thing he did, he hurt his back quite frequently when he was in Calgary. I think he was lifting too many weights and too much weight, and he always had back problems. And
Joe, you know what? And that quick story. No, I didn't hurt myself there. Here's what I did. I would go home in the summer from playing junior hockey, and I worked for the town of Smithers. We came from this little town called Smithers, and I was working for the public works in Smithers, and we were putting in a water line, and these pipes are like 15 foot long and about 12-inch in diameter, and they're made out of concrete, and they're heavy as hell. And I was lifting these things off a truck and helping install them and just doing that, and that's where I hurt my back.
Okay.
So Joe, it wasn't from the weights, buddy, but that was the story on that one, and that came back to haunt me a little bit. But nonetheless, I got a.
Did it become a lingering back problem, or was it?
It was chronic. It was with me right from the start, damn near. But I got through it and did the best I could with it, Zach.
Yeah, you did.
I could have. You know what? I could have had another 8, 9, 10 years in my career. I only played 9 years in the league and 10 years pro. I could have played a lot longer. I was taking good care of myself. Otherwise I was in good shape.
Yeah.
But the back kind of gave out on me. Yeah. So.
Well, you made the most of, those. I forgive me, but I didn't realize the two of you were just all-stars. Congratulations that
I only made it a couple times. Jimmy made it 5 or 6 times.
But only a couple times. You're talking. I mean, there's guys who never make it even get close and still have what's to be considered great careers.
Joe,
there you go, Dad. I just gave you a plug. You should have been a perennial all-star. Love you, Dad. But it's that's an amazing accomplishment, especially in the era that you were playing in. Like you talk about just amazing players coming into the NHL, and still you guys were there. I think that's something I didn't really realize until I started really researching about you.
Zach, we come from a little town in Smithers, British Columbia. Now, when I left there in 1960, there was 800 people lived there. And I moved away and I went to try out in Estevan, Saskatchewan, and I just proceeded to keep on going in my career. But if you look back at a little place called Smithers, we had 7 or 8 guys from that area made the National Hockey League.
Wow.
We had the Flockharts, both Flockharts, Glenn Cochran. We had Alan, what's Alan's last name?
Alan Kerr, Danny Hamhuis.
Brian Spitter Spencer wasn't far from there. And then we had the Playfairs.
And Joey and Danny Hamhuis, Joe.
Danny Hamhuis. So there's 8 or 9 guys from that little area of 175 radius of Smithers that made the National Hockey League, which is hard to believe, but it's hard to comprehend what that little area has done for the National League.
No.
And then one thing we didn't get to, we went right ahead to, I feel like the Russian game, but the cup win, and then also you didn't just win a cup, you won a city. I mean, Philadelphia was definitely not a great place at that time. There were a lot of struggles, a lot of people dealing with a lot of frustrations, and you would think it would be the Phillies or the Eagles that would have brought them out of it. But it was a bunch of people that weren't from the zip code, weren't even from the country. And then you guys become gods. You just mentioned you were a town from 890 people suddenly living in a city with millions. Joe, you kind of were there for a bit, but then Jim, you come along, but both of you explode. The entire team explodes in terms of fame and recognition. How did you handle that? Where were you with that? Like, I could go anywhere and get anything that I want because we own this city, and rightfully so.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, listen, you know what? That was, you look at that, just leading up to that, I had never won anything in hockey until I got to the Flyers in the NHL, believe it or not. All through my youth hockey and stuff, juniors, we never were able to win the championship. So you know what? It's just an example of perseverance and keep working hard. And you shouldn't be judged on how many wins you have. You just judged on your effort and your persistence and your good, and stick with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. I can't speak for Joe, but that's what I did. And that's what I think anybody does, frankly, in the game. If you're going to get to the Stanley Cup Finals and win it, it's just persistence and staying with it. And that's what I was doing. I was young enough, and somehow I was focused enough and mature enough to be focused. And that's what was really my key when I look back on my career. So, in other words, every game we would go into play in the playoffs, I just focus on my next shift. I didn't say things like, well, we got to win this game today. Of course we got to win. But I would just say, I got to win this next shift and just keep my focus on that. And even if I made a little bad play in the one shift, I just keep battling through it and then eventually win the shift, and just keep going forward. So every game, slowly move forward through the game and every shift play and go on. And then you're going to have a good result at the end. And that's what invariably happened. Going into a third period with a 1-goal lead, well, you just focus on the next shift. Don't worry about the final, because it's not going to be a good result.
Right.
And that's what was my big key, was staying focused. And, but then the city itself opened our arms to us. It was incredible. The people, the one comment I heard was, we love you Flyers for two reasons. Essentially, we love hockey the way it's played. They love the physicalness of it and the way we always battle hard. And then we won in 1974, and they hadn't had a winner in the city since the 1960 Eagles. Okay, so they were starving for a winner. And that's what they also said. You gave us a winner, and we love hockey.
So, okay, our first parade. I was living in the suburban area of Philadelphia, and I went to a drugstore to pick up some film because I want to get pictures of the cup of our parade. I go in this drugstore and they get some film, and they had no film left. I says, I'm looking for some film. Oh no, there's no film left. I said, what do you mean? Why? Because the Flyers, didn't you hear the Flyers won the Stanley Cup? We're coming in buying film, and I couldn't get it. And then I was walking out, and somebody says, "That's Joe Watt. That's Joe Watt." I got my car took off. Jesus God! But the best part about the parades, boys, the second parade was streaking was in. That's when the girls were streaking and they were climbing the poles, and I said, "Oh my God."
That was wild.
I remember Mom and Maud being there, Jimmy, in the parade.
Yeah.
And they looked, they said, they were
Zach, the girls were hanging from the lamp standard. They were climbing up the friggin' lamp standards and bare-breasted. You know what? What a friggin' treat that was for us.
Rock stars.
Wow.
And it's funny, that is, so I mentioned, probably erroneously that, you could have everything you want in the city. It's like, that was the dichotomy of the team is, I'm going to bring up Rexy's. You would go and hang out Rexy's with other guys who were just getting off their shifts, and, you were just getting off practice or whatever it was. But then also there would be those amazing moments where you'd be rock stars. I mean, I've never been flashed for my accomplishments. Someday I hope to achieve that, but that had to have been an amazing moment. Like, damn, right now we are Peter Frampton. We really are icons, because nothing says iconic like naked lady fans.
Oh my God. And they're all shapes and sizes.
You really touched on something there, Zach. Well,
That's
we were
great.
treated awfully well. I mean, they're just incredible. The people, they were so
Yeah.
appreciative of the team and just winning. And but they just loved hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, the franchise became, and it is one of the top franchises in the entire league.
Still,
Yeah.
always
And
will be.
the city just and grow. And Joe, you have stories about, initially when the Flyers came to Philly, it didn't look that good, but Ed Snyder told some great stories. Zach told us stories about how he got the franchise and what have you, and then just the perseverance. But I think we have to talk about him just a little bit.
Please do.
Ed Snyder was a flamboyant, fiery owner. Okay, he was flamboyant. He dressed. He was always top notch dressed, looked sharp, and man, he would strut around, and he kind of demanded respect. He would come into our locker after every game, man. And one thing you did not want to have is have Ed look at you and give you a glare if you had lost the game and hadn't played well. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You didn't want him doing that to you. That was, oh my God. And then if you won or whatever, play well, he'd come over, shake your hands, and way to go. You know what? That was all you needed to hear.
Yeah.
But he instilled that in us. So I often said, high standards, right? We had real high standards, but he had high rewards for us.
Yes.
He really treated us well. Okay. But he demanded excellence.
And treated you well for what it seems is, for the duration of your lives. Like my dad's always referred to Mr. Snyder as someone, if he was ever truly in any sort of bind, before he would even approach family, Mr. Snyder would help him out.
Yeah. Joe, you could talk about that.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of dealings with Ed. I remember the first time I met him was 1967 up in Quebec City. We had training camp, and so in a way, we had two dressing rooms that players are dressing, and so we're having meetings in between training camp and after practice and so forth. And the Snyder kids are there, and these kids are running around through the locker room, and we're having these meetings. I says, "What the hell's going on here? Who are these kids?" And somebody said, "Oh, they're the Snyder family." I said, "Oh, the owner." I said, "Yeah." And then so I go out on the ice, and Eddie Van Emp points to Ed Snyder. I said, "He can't be the owner. He's too young. He's young. He's great. He's young. He's got glasses on and everything else. He can't be the owner." But he was the owner. And I remember initially when he bought the franchise from the National Hockey League, he paid $12 million for it, and he had this money set aside, and he had 8 investors. And when the time comes to put up the money, 5 of the guys backed out. We didn't have enough money to pay for this, so we went and visited a guy named Joe Scott. Joe Scott owned the biggest brewer in Philadelphia, and he sold it for $30 million. He had moved down to Florida. So Ed goes down to visit him there, and he convinces Joe Scott to come up and look at what's going on and everything else. And Joe Scott put him over the top, and that was it. That was friggin' it, man. And
yeah.
Ed was always felt indebted to Joe Scott.
Yeah.
And I remember the first year we lost the roof in February. We weren't drawing. Obviously, there was no fans coming to the building because all our games were on the road. We're playing the last 22 games on the road, and Ed needed $2 million to continue the season. And he goes to a guy named Bill Bear at Gerard Bank, and he told him he needed $2 million to continue the franchise and keep the franchise going for the first year. And lo and behold, next morning, he was looking for $2 million. Next morning, he had $2 million in his account, and that was it. That was history.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what happened. That's just what happened.
Yeah.
He could swing a deal, Big Ed. He was a great businessman, Zach, but he had a great personality. And
well, Clarky was telling me the other day, whenever, because he would go off and do his other ventures, and whenever people who worked for the Flyers or played against the Flyers would see that there was the parking spot reserved for Mr. Snyder was full with whatever car he was driving at the time, there was this newfound either inspiration or fear if you were playing against them. Like, okay, the Flyers are back again. Mr. Snyder's back.
I remember talking about the fear that we put in some teams. I remember talking to Bobby Nystrom and Gary Howe at one time in the summertime, and they'd be coming down from 95 there, 95 south, going into Philadelphia, and they come over the old Walt Whitman Bridge, and they're making a lot of noise. All of a sudden, they get to the very top of the bridge, and they look, off the distance to the left-hand side, and they look down, they see the spectrum, the whole bus becomes quiet.
Yeah.
They knew they were going to a war, and they all settled down and they're very quiet till I guess the game started, or whatever. But
Yeah.
we had some real battles against them. The Islanders were a good team, and not only the Islanders, Boston was a very, they talk about the Broad Street Bullies. Right, Boston was a very physical team in the late '60s, early '70s, and they were very intimidating. And but we kind of, I don't know, we picked our style of play or whatever, but I think we molded our team after Boston. St. Louis was a very, very physical team too. They were big and brutal and bruising, and so thus the Broad Street Bullies were born, man. And it's a very iconic name. And I was flying home to Smithers, British Columbia about 6-7 years ago. I was flying from Toronto to Vancouver, and I sat next to this guy, and we started talking, and he sounded like a Brit. I said, "Are you a Brit?" He said, "No, I'm an Aussie." I said, "Oh, okay." And so we were flying to Vancouver, and we're drinking some beer, and he said, "Well, what do you do?" He referred to myself. I said, "Oh, I work in Philadelphia for the Flyers hockey team." He says, "The Flyers hockey team? I mean, the Broad Street Bullies?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I've never watched a hockey game in my life, but I was in New York for 4 or 5 days, and I watched the HBO special about the Broad Street Bullies. I fell in love with hockey." And he says, "Well, I was in the damn thing. You were in this thing?" I said, "Yeah." Talking about my dad had overalls on and woolen underwear, and he had cow shit all over his boots and everything else. And the guy thought it was one of the funniest things he had seen, for God's sake. So it goes to show you, Flyers are iconic. Remember when we went to Europe? We went to Europe 8 or 9 times to play in exhibition tournaments. Everywhere we went, we saw people with Flyer jerseys on. And Ed used to always say, "Joe, I know I've done something right," because I'd come back and tell him, he says, "I've done something right when you could find foreign flying jerseys on other countries in the world."
Yeah.
Especially in Europe. And we were in Russia 3 years ago. We must have seen 20, 25 people with Flyer jerseys in the crowd.
Yeah.
And these, the buildings are 8, 9, 10,000 feet, 10,000 people at the games. People had Flyer jerseys on. He was so proud of that. And unfortunately, I couldn't tell him because he passed on before I could tell him after we went to Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Ed was, you know what, he did an amazing job. And you look at the way, well, going back to how the Broad Street Bullies kind of started. I mean, Joe, I wasn't here at the time, but St. Louis had apparently beaten up on the Flyers in a playoff series.
Yeah.
In the 1968-69 or 67-68 series. The Blues kind of beat up on the Flyers. And Ed Snyder came out and said, "Listen, this will never happen again."
Mm-hmm.
And he directed his scouts and the coaches, "Hey, listen, let's get a friggin' tougher team here, not putting up with this." And that's what happened. That's how that occurred.
Yep.
Big Ed made the call. Let's go.
Yep.
So all of a sudden we started drafting these big, tough, hard-nosed dudes and got character guys. And we also had a great captain. I mean, I haven't talked about Bobby that much, but to me, Zach, Clarkie was one of the best captains ever. I mean, for me, I follow all sports. I don't know of a better leader than Bob Clark, not only in hockey, but in all sports.
What did he do for you? Because he was, you both know Clarkie. He's not one who wants to, brag on his own credentials.
Well, what he did, listen, you would walk into the locker for practice. He'd be in there always early and getting ready. And then he would go out and practice and always be the hardest worker in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Work his tail off in practice. I mean, and I would watch this and I was saying, "Holy Jesus, this guy's the best player." And he did, look how hard he's working. And it inspired me to work harder in practice. I remember saying this to myself. And then in the games, you come in for a game and he's always in there early getting ready to go. And he's sitting in there and you get to see the intensity pouring out of him. And again, you say, "Well, I'm not going to let him down. He's playing his tail off for me." And so I would just work as hard as I possibly could. And a lot of it, I had that ingrained in me, but yet Bob inspired me even more so. Yeah. And when we lose a game, it would devastate him. He was so upset. And that's kind of the persona that we took on our team, that we hated to lose maybe more than win. We love to win, but hated to lose even more.
Yeah.
So that was it with Bob. He was always the hardest worker, and just always when you're on the ice with him in a game, always got open for you for a pass. I mean, that's a leader. You know, he finds the ways to get open, so you got an outlet with the puck. Otherwise, it's pretty bad when you got the puck and you got nobody to give it to. He's always got open, and he would always holler your name loud and clear, and boy, it just helped you make good plays. So I got nothing but positive things to say about Bob.
That seems to be the consensus, unless you ask him. And of course, he gives credit to everybody else. But
Yeah,
he was when you think about iconic NHL captains, I mean, he's right there with the Messiers and.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, Joe, you're writing another book. I'm in contact intermittently with Brad Meltzer, who's helping you write it.
Bill Meltzer. Yeah, you know what?
Bill Meltzer, sorry.
I've never done one, Zach, but when I retired here about 3 months ago. And on my retirement, Bill Meltzer wrote this article about our trip to Russia. And I said, boy, it was so in depth and everything. I said, holy God, he remembered everything about the trip. And I was asked a number of times by people I should write a book. So after I read his article, I said to myself, if I'm going to do a book, I'm going to get this guy to do a book. So I called him up, and he said he'd love to do it. So, so that's what we're doing. We're in the third chapter now. The first chapter was about my life growing up as a young boy and going off to Estevan, and then the second chapter was about at Estevan playing junior hockey and North Battleford Beaver Bruins, as well as Estevan Bruins. And now the third chapter is going to be coming to the Flyers from the expansion draft of 1967.
Okay.
And there's probably going to be 10 or 12 chapters. I think that's what Bill said. So it was a lot of work. I never realized how much work there was.
Yeah.
I had a lot of meetings. In fact, Jimmy's going to come. Jimmy and Bernie are meeting me this next Tuesday. We're going to Chicky and Pete's in South Philly to
Beautiful.
talk for an hour and a half, and go over things. And Bill writes everything down. My God, he writes and writes and writes.
He's great.
So we'll see how it comes out. I think it's going to be a lot of funny things in there, and humorous things, and some kind of sad things too, but that's the way it is, Yeah.
Hey, Zach, the best thing about that luncheon is Joe's going to buy. How's that?
Zach, it's a write-off. That's why I'm buying.
Right. Yeah. It's a business expense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, Bernie was my second guest on this podcast, and I knew him over the years, but what a wonderfully weird man he is. He's just right. And I keep, and I don't think I don't know if he's told that many people this, but you guys almost had your game 6 win at the Spectrum turned into a tie because Bernie stopped paying attention with about 10 seconds left to go.
Shot the puck down, he said.
Yep.
But Zach, take a look at the film. Did you watch the film?
Yeah.
Bernie had his eye. He was, he had his eye. He knew what was going on.
Okay.
I was right on the ice. I was on the ice. The last guy to touch the puck. Bernie made it sound like, God.
But Bernie, hey, listen, Bernie's brilliant. He's a funny guy. I mean,
genius.
A lot of stories, and
totally.
He's fun to be around.
So much fun. He was a joy, as both of you have been. And I really, I was looking forward to this because I love talking to the boys, and the reason that I was really looking forward to this is that my dad was, because he loves both of you incredibly, and was very, very excited to have both of you on the show.
Well, you know what, Zach? Hey, Zach, real quickly, I met your father when we went to Richmond. Him and I played a year in the American League, my very first year of professional.
Yeah.
And Oris was on the team, and then we both came up together. And talking about Stanley Cup, little tidbits of information. After the first Stanley Cup, we went back to Bobby Clark's house and had a big party there. And then we had the parade the next day. So what were we going to do in the meantime? Well, your dad and mom invited myself and a bunch of my friends from Canada over to his house. We went back there and sat around, drank some more brews before the friggin' parade. You know, and you have that little.
My mom told me this story
Oh.
earlier today that you powered through. You were up for like 24 straight
Yeah,
hours.
exactly right. We didn't even go to bed, for God. I think we laid on his floor in the living room and slept for half an hour and got back up again and went at her. But all
Yeah.
on adrenaline.
They still have that house in Medford Lakes, same house.
Yeah, it was great. Loved it.
Yeah. And
That's
yeah.
my story with Orst. A lot of good times.
Yes. And he's told me so many great stories about the both of you. Nothing but, you know, just absolute adoration coming from him. And so thank you both. This was like it's been for the most part, just a joy. I'll admit the Glenn Sather interview I did was difficult, but
Did you talk to Slats recently? Did you talk to Slats?
yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, did you? Because I just talked to him the other day, and Bill Meltzer interviewed him for about a half an hour, 45 minutes.
Oh yeah,
Him and I played together in Oklahoma City.
Yes, before he came.
And then I played against him with the Edmund. He was with the Edmund Oil Kings. I was with the Estevan Bruins, and we ended up in the finals of the Western Canada Memorial Cup 2 years in a row, and both times they beat us. And they went on to win the Memorial Cup. They beat Niagara Falls. But Sather was with that team, and I never liked playing against him. I hated the son of a bitch. But anyway,
Yep.
I played against him, but he's really a good guy, Slats. He's
a super nice guy. He's he's the just the answers he would give would be like, well, what would you do? Just like it's just I was bringing up the 1981 draft of like, well, you got Curry, Moog, and Coffey all in the same draft. How great is that? He's like, yeah. Well, sometimes you're lucky. And then just stares into your soul. It's like, you know, you almost want to apologize to him. Yeah. But you know, all the Flyers I've had, you know, Leach, Schultz, Perrant, Poulin, and then you know, Grant Fuhrer was great to talk to. But this has been just an amazing experience for me, and then you know, for my dad as well, for him to be able to reconnect with everybody. And his Watson brother stories are legendary. I hope they're all true. I really do.
Yeah, right. Well, Zach, thanks very much for having us. Thank you. Very nice of you. Thank you. And
yes,
good luck with your shows. Hey, good luck with good fortune with your shows.
Hey, thank you. Yeah. And good to talk to you guys, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Enjoyed it very much, man. And good luck to you, and hi to mom and dad. All right.
Certainly will. Thanks, buddy.
All right, Zach. Take care, buddy.
So long.
Bye.
See you, Joe.